The FBI, 美国最大的 secret keeper. 我跟你讲起来哈 These fools have been involved in every major secret event in my country's history. From aliens to Martin Luther King and JFK's assassination, to 9/11 and New York CCP police stations. And most recently, the Mexican drug cartel. Controlling secrets means controlling power, making the Federal Bureau of Investigation one of the most powerful institutions in the entire United States of America. And now, with Trump's recent nomination of his new FBI director, the swamp is shaking in its boots because this guy is planning to expose all the corruption. And he will very likely reveal an American version of the Gestapo.
You're in trouble now.
Oh, and just 5 days ago, the Department of Justice released a report that confirms and denies the FBI's involvement in the January 6th insurrection. So, 准备一大碗的爆米花 and prepare for a very special X-Files version of 代志大条. So, over the past 2 years in preparing for his re-election, in addition to China, Trump has also very commonly mentioned these two words: deep state.
Who were really the powerful people? Was it the director of CIA? Was it FBI? Was it the big pharma? Was it military-industrial complex? Who actually has
the
power?
most powerful person by far? The president. But there is a sort of a deep state. And a lot of that's people that have been there. And then there's some bad guys, there's some bad people.
Now, back in the day, 我的年代，我们听到那些 deep state 那两个字，我们都会觉得，this is conspiracy theory, yo. But as of recently, there's been a lot of stuff coming out that shows that this is very, very serious shit. And it ain't a conspiracy theory, it's just straight up conspiracy. And a lot of it started when a very popular famous YouTuber created his own episode dedicated to unpeeling the layers of the deep state.
Kennedy gets in a car and travels across town to like a cocktail party.
He came here to a house in Georgetown, the home of Joe Alsop, one of the nation's most influential newspaper columnists. It was the eve of nuclear war, and the President of the United States kept his dinner date in Georgetown. And the reason why is because at that party were the people he trusted, the people who really had power in Washington during that time. Most of them lived here in this neighborhood, many of them side by side, all within a few blocks.
William Colby, the Far East chief of the CIA. He would later become the director of the agency. Chip Bolin, a former ambassador to the Soviet Union. Alan Dulles, the CIA's longest-running director, and he lived right here in Georgetown. Frank Wiesner, one of the founding officers of the CIA. He lived just 6 blocks away. Felix Frankfurter, a Supreme Court justice, just a couple minutes walk away. And Kennedy himself had a house in this neighborhood. The reason JFK kept his date in Georgetown that night was because this is where power in Washington was, on the other side of town from the Capitol building, the seat of American democracy. The decisions were being made here by unelected men who had an immense amount of secret power.
If you haven't already, after you finish this video, I highly recommend you go out and check out that episode. Link down below. That's it, mail CC to the wall, but I'll give you the short summarized version. Basically, the deep state is not some evil group of unknown figures lurking in the shadows, pulling strings. Instead, they're just a bunch of lazy, unmovable bureaucrats who work inside and outside and with the government to consolidate and control their power over America, the American people, and even the president himself. And whereas elected government officials have term limits, these fools don't have to get elected at all. They get a Yongcho term limit of fucking over the American people and never having to be held accountable for it.
Here's my plan to dismantle the deep state and reclaim our democracy from Washington corruption once and for all. First, I will immediately reissue my 2020 executive order restoring the president's authority to remove rogue bureaucrats, and I will wield that power very aggressively. Second, we will clean out all of the corrupt actors in our national security and intelligence apparatus. The departments and agencies that have been weaponized will be completely overhauled. Fourth, to expose the hoaxes and abuses of power that have been tearing our country apart, we will establish a Truth and Reconciliation Commission to declassify and publish all documents on deep state spying, censorship, and corruption. Sixth, we will make every Inspector General's office independent and physically separated from the departments they oversee so they do not become the protectors of the deep state.
Now, I know quite a few of you watching might associate yourself with the Republican Party, but when it comes to the deep state, it has no partisan limits. Its members consist of Republicans, Democrats, and even independents. And it spans across multiple government institutions, from the CIA to the DOJ to the DHS to the HLS, and the one we're going to talk about today, the FBI.
In national news, a newly released released Inspector General's report reveals the FBI had dozens of confidential informants on the ground during the January 6th riot at the Capitol.
Something lawmakers previously pressed FBI Director Christopher Wray on. Wray told lawmakers he did not believe so. The FBI director, however, dodged questions about informants.
I'm not going to get into where we have or have not used confidential human sources. I can tell you that if you are asking if the violence at the Capitol on January 6th was part of some operation orchestrated by FBI sources or agents, the answer is no.
From hunting aliens to taking out civil rights leaders to even tracking Chinese spies, the FBI has had their hands in all of it. And when it comes to the most recent report released just last week, the DOJ shed some light on exactly the FBI's involvement in January 6th.
Events in Washington have taken a violent and tumultuous turn in the past few hours, as thousands of supporters of President Trump stormed the US Capitol building, venting their anger at the victory of Joe Biden in the presidential election. They forced the evacuation and lockdown of Congress itself, where lawmakers were all set to approve the election result. Shortly before the clashes, President Trump had addressed his supporters near the White House, telling them that he would never accept defeat.
I sat and watched what happened go down in stream in real time, and then I turned on the Taiwan 新闻 and found out 他们都没有把到底发生什么事讲清楚，很逊呢。
Cause you suck at your job.
So I'll give it to you in the most simplest of terms. A group of very extreme Trump supporters decided that they were going to hold Mike Pence and Nancy Pelosi accountable, and if they didn't overturn and certify the election results in favor of Trump, they were going to hang their asses. 我没有说夸张哦, they actually showed up with nooses in their hands.
I'm hearing reports that Pence caved. I'm telling you, if Pence caved, we're gonna drag through the streets. You politicians are gonna get drugged through the streets. Bring out Pence!
And the result, hundreds of people, protesters, and Capitol Police were severely injured, and one protester was even shot to death. And also during this time, Pelosi, Mike Pence, and several members of Congress had to hide in safety until they were eventually evacuated, just barely escaping the mob's grasp.
We're calling the National Guard now. Should have been here to start out.
Illinois Representatives Robin Kelly, Mike Quigley, and Brad Schneider among those in the House gallery who were caught in the chaos.
Then all of a sudden it was, get your gas mask. We've been breached. You may have to hide under your chair.
We were surrounded up in the balcony. And if it's fight or flight, you don't have flight, I was honestly thinking, how am I going to make a weapon out of something? Because they were at the door.
Now you might be wondering, how in the hell could these protesters have entered the Capitol building? Well, here's the thing. A couple of Capitol Police actually let them in.
The following footage was obtained from the United States Department of Justice. It contains surveillance video of the Upper West Terrace doors of the United States Capitol on January 6, 2021. Just after 2:33 p.m., police officers allow 5 individuals to exit the Capitol through the Upper West Terrace doors. At 2:34 p.m., a gentleman holding an American flag catches the door just as the last protester leaves. He turns to the crowd outside and waves towards the door. At the same time, at 2:34 p.m., a gentleman with a red cap approaches the interior doors. As the police officer notices him, he continues to approach. The police officer holds the door for the protester as he enters the Capitol undeterred. At 2:35 p.m., a large group enters the interior of the Capitol, police standing at the doors. As a steady stream of protesters enter through the Upper West Terrace doors, they can see police officers standing at the interior doors, allowing people to pass. Around 250 protesters entered through the Upper West Terrace doors that day, many of which are charged with felony obstruction for entering a building undiscouraged.
So as you can see, quite a few of those protesters entered the Capitol building with very little resistance, barely even an inconvenience, moving around like tourists in a goddamn museum, wandering the Senate chambers and offices and even the congressional hearing room. As we all know, a lot of them got arrested and were thrown in prison.
I'm going to look at everything. We're going to look at individual cases, yeah.
Okay.
But I'm going to be acting very quickly.
Within your first 100 days, first day?
First day.
First day.
Yeah, I'm looking first day.
Issue these pardons.
These people have been there, how long is it? 3 or 4 years.
Okay.
And they're in a filthy, disgusting place that shouldn't even be allowed to be open.
Now, according to Trump, these people were acting to save democracy and had nothing but good intentions, although some of them had another agenda in mind, to fuck shit up. And of course, some people argue that these people were exploited to create a political crisis, providing a justification for even stricter laws against their political opponents. And we call those fools the FBI, one of the most devious and most powerful surveillance agencies the American people have ever seen. Following January 6, Congress had one objective in mind: to investigate and find out exactly what happened. But the agency they tasked with investigating the matter just might have played a very questionable role in the entire thing.
In some ways, it raises more questions than answers. There's going to be a lot of concern as to what these sources were doing there.
The report concludes the FBI did not have any undercover agents on the ground.
The truth is, confidential human source is a fancy name for spy. There were 26 of them here on January 6, 2021. 4 of them entered the Capitol.
None of the informants who broke the law were prosecuted, unlike hundreds of others.
To put it in simple terms, we investigated ourselves and we found that we did absolutely nothing wrong.
Bullshit.
Only 3 of the 26 were told by the FBI to be there. 23 others went on their own. The IG report also revealing many of these FBI sources broke the law that day. 4 entering the Capitol building, 13 others went into restricted areas. The FBI did not give them permission to do so.
So to be clear, the FBI had 26 informants present at the Capitol building, but they were not cleared to do anything, and definitely weren't cleared to incite violence. Well, according to the report, the FBI did not create a specific product or launch a comprehensive effort to gather intelligence on the events planned for January 6th. This gap was a critical oversight. 等一下，我理解清楚啊。You had 26 informants whose job is to gather information and bring it back to you at the Capitol building, but you didn't tell them what information they're supposed to get? No papers, no evidence, no body cam footage, nothing at all? 但是你要记得哦 ，FBI 没有对任何人做 violence 哦。But to be fair, the FBI did kind of admit they
According to the report, one of these individuals warned the FBI there could be unplanned violent activity on January 6th. Another had concerns for the safety of members of Congress.
Some of which was not adequately shared with the WFO, or if shared, not adequately followed up on by WFO. 所以他们居然有 intel, 但是好像忘记分享，对吧?
Some fuckery's going on.
So needless to say, the FBI's strong presence at such a controversial event in American history seems sus as fuck. And it's got a lot of folks on Capitol Hill wondering if those 26 informants weren't just there to fuck shit up.
Juliet, first I just want to get your reaction to this breaking news that President-elect Trump intends to nominate Kash Patel to serve as the FBI director.
The only reason why Trump would have done this pick is for his retribution campaign.
And now, Trump's FBI director nominee Kash Patel is looking to kick ass, take names, and clean it all up. And that means exposing the agency's darkest secrets, including those related to the deep state.
So let's get into the deep state. What is it?
It is an apolitical entity that operates in government to service itself instead of the American people. And what I mean by that is it's leadership positions across government, whether it's DOJ, FBI, DOD, CIA, whatever, combined with underlying positions that are pretty senior up, who work with mainstream media entities to perpetuate frauds on the American people, to commit government corruption, and to stay in power, and to lie to the American people, and to rob them of the truth. That is the singular purpose of the deep state, because they think once the truth gets out, their corruption is going to be exposed. They might get prosecuted for breaking the law. And once that happens, you have an explosion in D.C.
Kash Patel. If he can stay alive long enough, he just very well may be the next FBI director. And after watching this exclusive interview, I very quickly realized why the mainstream media, the deep state, and everyone else is against this fool. They will stop at nothing to keep this fool from getting appointed.
Who is the organizer?
I don't think that there's one specific organizer. I think there is a group of organizations that have participated in it for a while. The World Economic Forum is a piece of it. Certain politicians are a piece of it. Certain people who become AGs, directors of the FBI, directors of the CIA, etc., are a piece of it. And of course, the mainstream media is a big component of it. All of those entities partner up together to take over Washington, D.C. And instead of doing the job for the American people, they come out and instead come up with government boondoggles that pay themselves billions and billions of dollars, or their friends billions and billions of dollars, which is our dollars. And they want to make sure that that keeps going over and over and over again.
So from legacy media to big corporations and even internet companies, they are all complicit in creating a smokescreen, hiding things from the American people.
I'll give you a perfect example. Who cares if you've ever followed Russiagate or any of this other stuff about the deep state? Chris Wray, the director of the FBI, and Rod Rosenstein, the Deputy Attorney General then of the DOJ, were tasked with helping us at Congress, where I ran the Russiagate investigation, to expose Russiagate. We went to them and said, look, you guys didn't do this. Help us expose it. And they both doubled down. You know what they did? They launched an investigation against me, the senior congressional investigator for Russiagate on the House Intelligence Committee, and 6 other staffers. They used grand jury subpoenas to get my personal information, my banking information, my emails, my cell phone information, everything else. I didn't find out till 5 years later when Google called me and said, hey, our 5-year notification has lapsed. We can now tell you the DOJ surveilled you. And we had to turn over documents. So that became that, we exploded that into a federal lawsuit that's still ongoing in the DOJ and FBI. But those two guys.
Hold on. What? So Google informed you that you're being surveilled 5 years after the investigation started.
Right.
What more did they tell you?
They're not allowed to say anything, but that you can be informed now since it's 5 years later.
So to put it simply, Kash was hired as a congressional investigator to find out exactly what Trump's involvement was in Russiagate. And then when Kash found out that all the FBI might not be complicit, they might just be stupid or incompetent, when bringing this information to his congressional superiors, they then turned around and investigated the congressional investigator himself. And it wasn't until 5 years later, only because Google was contractually obligated to tell Kash that he was being investigated, that he knew he was being investigated. And Google is the only one that we know of anyway. This means that for 5 years, every subscription he had to OF or Swag or P-Hub, at least where it's still legal anyway, they knew exactly what he was watching. Scary. This is the power of the deep state, conducting unauthorized investigations on even their own people who are elected to represent them.
Who is at the head of it?
I don't think there's one person or one group. I think it's people who know they're going to benefit from each other if they sign up for the program, let's call it, right? And so, again, not a Republican or Democrat thing. In the glossary of this book, in alphabetical order, I think there's like 65 people I name by title and name, just to show people how expansive the deep state is. And so there is no like one chain of command they report to. Instead, what I believe they do is they bring in people that they can control. Oh, the Obamas still have heavy sway in that entire operation, and so do people that have been around for 10, 20, 30 years in Washington.
We all know that the best way to control anyone is to control their secrets, because the fear of having them revealed will instill the utmost of compliance. So in the US government, who exactly knows the most amount of secrets?
The FBI's footprint has gotten so freaking big, and the biggest problem the FBI has come out of its intel shops. I'd break that component out of it. I'd shut down the FBI Hoover building on day one and reopening the next day as a museum of the deep state. And I'd take the 7,000 employees that work in that building and send them across America to chase down criminals. Go be cops. You're cops. Go be cops. Go chase down murderers and rapists and drug dealers and violent offenders. What do you need 7,000 people there for? Same thing with DOJ. What are all these people doing here? Looking for their next government promotion, looking for their next fancy government title, looking for their parachute out of government. So while you're bringing in the right people, you also have to shrink government.
So massive government reform.
Yeah, and you got to work with Congress to eliminate the billets. This is one of the things we did when I was deputy DNI. We got to DNI and I was like, okay, what do all these people do? We've got the CIA, so why do I have analysts doing the CIA's job here? Why do I have a floor of them? Like, give me a good answer. I don't know everything. I don't know a lot. But if you can give me an answer that satisfies their existence, I'm all in. Well, we just have our own people. Okay, well, now we don't. And we went to Congress and zeroed out a bunch of billets, and they hated us for it.
Simply put, many branches of the US government, the FBI included, have a lot of positions that simply should not exist. But coincidentally, these positions all have access to a variety of important intelligence, security clearances, and resources.
There needs to be a multitude of things done, but I think the biggest punishment, strip their security clearances forever. Remember, every one of these people is in the private sector, and you know this. They use that to get 7- and 8-figure paydays, to get big government contracts, to go for big defense contracting and intelligence firms, right? Who owns their security clearance? The U.S. government. Who pays for it? The U.S. government. So the DNI can come in there on day one and said X, 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 all the way down the line.
What's more crazy is after being fired or being retired, they don't even lose their security clearance. So if they get hired at a high corporate position somewhere else, they still have access to them secrets, yo.
唢呐，这个好像不太符合逻辑耶。他们已经不在那边上班，但是他们还有 security clearance，很奇怪呢。
Now you're beginning to understand exactly how to build your own deep state. Because all you need to do is find out what position is in charge of revoking security clearance, find out their dirty secrets, compromise, and control them. That way, when anyone on your team gets fired, gets caught up in some bullshit, or decides to retire, that person conveniently forgets to revoke their security clearance. 那很爽耶。
但是唢呐这个不太有 sense 耶，因为那些人怎么拿到他们的 dirty 秘密呢？
Who has Jeffrey Epstein's
Black Book?
Black Book.
FBI.
But who? That is I mean, there's.
Oh, that's under direct control of the director of the FBI. Just like the manifesto from the Nashville school shooting of the Catholic school.
Yeah.
We still haven't seen that, right? It's not the Nashville police or PD saying we don't want this out. The FBI airmailed into that operation and said this is not getting out. Because they do that because this is another government gangster operation. All these local law enforcement communities get funding from the DOJ and FBI for local programs. And if you don't cooperate, you're not getting your $1 million for this, and you're not getting and that's a lot of money to these local districts. That's how they play the game.
Every human on Earth, regardless of skin color or sexual orientation or gender, shares one very important commonality.
Sexual healing.
A person's sex life is the easiest way to uncover dirty secrets. Knowing your adult content preferences, your kinks, or even the favorite hotel of your shall sign is a very important and crucial key in setting a trap just for you. So, the moral of this story, always use incognito mode, always use a VPN, and never ever store your shit on Google Drive.
Now I know.
And knowing is half the battle.
G.I. Joe!
Now, stuff like this has been depicted multiple times on political dramas such as House of Cards and even big budget films. Now it's gone from movie scripts to actual official documents. The deep state, simply put, is just a channel through which private enterprises can influence US politics and much, much more. Oh, and there's also something very interesting. Just a few days ago, Patel posted something very cryptic on Twitter. Great seeing my friend Senator Roger Marshall this morning. We're going to work together to defeat the CCP triads. Well, it seems a lot of these private enterprises just might be foreign companies. And I'm not sure what Kash uncovered, but one thing is for sure. If he actually becomes appointed the next FBI director, 代志大条。
让我们继续看下去。
Let me know what you think down below. Remember to like, subscribe, and share this video with your friends, and I will see you on the flip side. Peace!